Yo, what's up everybody? Seth Drake here. Just trying to show you all what's going on with this giveaway pack. I'm going to hop right into it. If there's any other questions about how to install or whatever, go ahead and hit me up. I'm going to drag fun in here so we can have some audio going through it. All right, let's get cracking. So the first one's the up-down multi. What I've done here is Ableton does not let you run multibands using upwards compression into downwards compression. The best you can get is upwards expansion, which is this. This is expansion, and you can make it upwards expansion into downwards compression, but you can't go upwards compression into downwards compression. And I know that that's going to bring up a lot of questions, so I'm just going to try and explain this as fast as possible. Expansion and compression. So here's a compressor. This will help us understand it. It's all about the threshold. Compressors work when the signal crosses a threshold going up. So when the signal goes past the threshold this way, the compressor begins to work. Expanders work when the signal crosses the threshold this way. So after it drops below the threshold of the expander, does the expander work? So sometimes you want the signal to be able to cross the threshold this way and the compressor begin to push the signal up. And that's upward compression here. So as the signal crosses the threshold this way, this compressor is going to start turning the signal up. But then you might want regular compression after that, meaning let's say it's turning the signal up too loud. Then you're going to want to downwards compress it, meaning as it crosses this threshold this way, the compressor begins to turn it down. So this is upwards compression into downwards compression in a multiband format. I don't know if you're going to be able to hear it really well. Let's see. Turn this on. Yeah, you can barely hear it. Yeah, you can barely hear it. It makes the signal a little bit more alive. It's not obviously being very well tuned for this little tiny baby piano piece, but you can go ahead and fiddle with these guys, specifically making this one more intense and then making this one more intense and just shooting the signal hard into this end and then compressing it hard back down again. And you'll hear things get more alive and reverbs come up and all sorts of other reasons why you might want this scenario. So that's why I gave that out. I figured there'll be more questions. If anybody has more, hit me up. Moving on to the Drake filter. This is super straightforward. This is, I guess, Drake's engineer does this a lot. So it's just a bit reduction into a low pass. So you can hear it here. Just sort of like pretty little distorted bells filter off. So as opposed to just a regular filter sweep, it adds a little bit of spice to your filter sweeps. Just something fun. The MSPAC. This is really straightforward. So what you have here is you have mono and then you have stereo, so mid and side. And that means these are separated so you can process them individually. So I've already put an erosion on the side bit. Erosion is just right over here. So this is how it comes default. You slap an erosion on the side band, boom. Okay, so you can see here, we'll solo this. Same deal again. Piano. So now I'm only affecting the stereo end of things. And if I mute that, you can hear the mono piano. And if I bring that up, you can hear the stereo piano. So pretty much this MSPAC is just allows you to process mono and stereo content individually. So it's just like a little prepare pack to be able to do whatever processing you need. The Noclip empty. This one doesn't, you're not going to hear anything with this guy. But the main thing is, check this out. So let's say you have a really, really hot signal, like something crazy hot. And you have a plugin that you want to use that doesn't do well with overages. So let's say clipping. With this knob, you can turn down the signal going into whatever falls in here, and then turn the signal back up again to have a zero gain state change. So just as an example, I mean, I'm just going to use the chorus plugin. But now at this point, even though this is clipping, even though it's totally clipping going in, and you can see that, and it's clipping coming out, into the chorus plugin, it's actually not clipping at all. It's actually quite quiet. but we won't hear any difference if we turn this on and turn this off, because it's a zero-sum change. See? So that's helpful if you have plugins that don't like clipping or don't like overages, and you don't want to mess with your entire gain staging. So the multiband sidechain expander, that I'm going to have to do in a separate one. And I think I'm going to do, man, the Strangetron. So this is a new version of the Strangetron. It's actually the Strangetron V2. I've cleaned it up and I've neutralized it. So it's a little bit more straightforward. This is, again, sort of like a starting point for processing. Let me turn this back down again. I'm going to clip out. So regular piano intro sounds normal. We can bypass this. It should sounds pretty much the same. So, but what's happening here is you've got the main signal being split into 3 separate bands: your high, your mid, your low, and these are your crossovers for each. So this sets the crossover for like where the top of the mid band is, and this sets the crossover for where the top of the low band is. So then over wherever this is, let's say if we set it to 5 kilohertz, over 5 kilohertz now is the high band. The high band is now 5 to 20. The mid band is now 300 to 5, and the low band is 20 to 300. Does that make sense? So understanding that, now you understand like sort of like where you set your crossovers at for where you want to process, because this is wherever you're going to set these guys, is wherever you're going to then process your signal through these individual splits. Then in each split, you have controls now over the mid gain, the side gain, so the mono and the stereo, and the panning for each of those. And then here is where you would process them. So let's say we want to add chorus, but we only want to add chorus to the mid content, and of the mid-range frequencies, we only want to add the chorus to the stereo part of the signal. So we'll slap that here. We can go full wet just to like really drench it. And now, if we go over here, oh wait, I put that on the lows. Whoops, see, this is confusing. I was on the low one. Let's go to the stereo one. Boom. There we go. So now, if we solo the mono, totally no chorus going on. You can really hear the chorus there. Yeah. So you have this control. You can really mangle the sounds like this, and at the same time retain the integrity of the sounds, because you're only processing like smaller and smaller fractions of the sound as you go through this chain. I hope that makes sense. So you can really get in there and be like, let's add some distortion, but let's only add distortion to a very small range of the midband. So we'll add some overdrive to the very small range of the mono content within the midband. So we'll neutralize this again and that again. There we go. I'm going to turn that down. We can really drive it now. So you can hear how we're getting this insane drive out of here. But the rest of the signal is completely intact because all we're working on is this one little tiny band. And you can even reduce it even further. Or you can go to the lows. But again, the stereo content is totally untouched. So we could copy this over to the stereo if we wanted to. But then of course we're going to have to turn that way down. See, so you can really just narrow in on these little tiny bits. So it's basically multi-band processing plus mid-side processing, and allows you to do a lot of different stuff. And so that was the basis of the Strangetron, and I'll upload this guy as a all neutralized and cleaned up, ready to go, the version 2 after this tutorial. Okay, moving on. Particle dissolve. This is really straightforward. You just turn the knob and things dissolve. So super easy, super straightforward. and then the Avocet. This is like, I have a monitor controller. It's made by a company called Crane Song. The name of the monitor controller is the Avocet. And this setup is actually how I use my monitor controller to solo the stereo content. So by turning this on, you have the ability to solo the same way that I do in my studio your stereo content. So really great thing to put this on the master bus, and then when you want to hear what's going on in your stereo stuff, you can just press this button, and all you're listening to now is the stereo content exactly the way that I do it at work, which is incredibly crucial and helpful for mixing and mastering. So let's just test it out. So we know this intro. So now we're only listening to the stereo content. And how do I know that? How do I know that? I'll show you. I'll just real quick add a MIDI track and stick a massive on here. And then I can make a G note. Just a G note. It's fine. So here's a G. Sweet. So I'm going to grab this plugin now and plop it here, and this sine wave is, this oscillator right now is just mono, and I know that because if I turn this on, we don't hear anything, meaning there is no stereo content. But but if I add a reverb, which is going to of course create stereo imaging and stereo content, you can start to hear the reverb appear. Whole signal with reverb, only the stereo content. So really, really helpful for doing your final mix and master and hearing if your stereo content is correct, or if you need to filter, or just being able to determine, is your stereo content balanced? Is there something too loud in your stereo content? Is there something too quiet? You know, do you need to turn maybe the drums up, or do you need to turn the synths down, or only in the stereo band, not necessarily in the whole mix, but just stereo-wise, managing that. Super important, and this plugin is really helpful for that. So I think that's it for using these guys or utilizing them. Obviously I got to get into this guy, the multiband sidechain expander, but I'm going to do a special tutorial for that, and it's already midnight, so I am going to go to bed. Hope this all makes sense, and if anybody has any questions, hit me up, and I will catch you all later. Take care.